Okay, if I can have your attention quick, please. First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody here to the Hartford Armory on behalf of General Martin. And it is really our pleasure to be a host today for this event. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Senator Blumenthal. We're glad to have you here today, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, General, and thank you to General Martin, all of the National Guard, our very distinguished and dedicated troops and warfighters who have served us so well. I am honored to be here today with a number of military working dogs whose service may not be familiar to many Americans. There are about 2,700 military working dogs deployed around the world, including the United States, and of course including our own National Guard. About 600 to 700 of them right now are in war zones, and hundreds have served over the course of the last two wars, Iraq and Afghanistan, in combat, in harm's way. These military working dogs are routinely in patrol ahead of the line, put in harm's way so they can detect and help to disarm the roadside bombs and IEDs that otherwise would kill and maim our troops. I have personally seen them at work. I visited in Afghanistan just last August and watched a demonstration of how these military working dogs patrol ahead of the line and actually are sent ahead to detect these bombs so that they can be blown up before they harm our troops. They demonstrate every day as our comrades and companions in combat, as the companions of soldiers and Marines, their strength and loyalty. And the purpose of the measure that I'm introducing is to return that loyalty and dedication, which they deserve, when they return to this country. Right now they are classified as equipment, which means their handlers have to pay for their transportation back, and the people who care for them once they return have to bear all of the costs of caring for them. And this bill would establish a private fund under the auspices of the government with donations that could provide for the care of these courageous dogs. It would also streamline their adoption, and it would provide for recognition of their service. We should remember that these dogs often suffer the same wounds, both visible and invisible, in post-traumatic stress and concussion impacts, as the troops do, our warfighters. And when they return, they continue their service. Very often they help to be companions and caregivers for our wounded heroes. And so the purpose of this measure, very simply, is to recognize their service, the strength and loyalty they demonstrate when they are in combat, and to return that loyalty when they come back as, in effect, comrades, compatriots, companions, and buddies of the warfighters whom they serve. This measure was inspired by a number of people. My own experience in Afghanistan, Lisa Phillips, whom you'll hear from shortly, has been very much involved in the effort to care for these dogs. She is originally a Connecticut native, although she now lives in Texas. But I want to introduce before her Sergeant Smith of the Army National Guard to tell you a little bit about his personal experience with these dogs. And I don't know the names of all of them. I know this is military working dog Fox, who is retired, and the other three are still on active duty. The National Guard has 6, and a number of them are going to be deployed in upcoming months abroad. But Sergeant Smith, if you would take over.
Sergeant First Class Smith, 928th Military Police. I'll just talk a little bit about the training requirements and what occurs once the military working dog arrives at his or her duty station. Generally what occurs is the dog is shipped from Lackland Air Force Base. Lackland Air Force Base conducts that level 1 training requirement and sends the dogs out to the field. Once the dog arrives, we generally look at about 6 months of socialization time. It's very important to make sure that that socialization time actually occurs. You want to make sure the dog is paired with the right person, the dog feels comfortable being with that person, and that they're able to conduct the required training. Once I feel that the dog team is socialized, I go ahead and do a validation. That validation takes about 5 days. We go through all the assigned odors, all the assigned training areas. Once that validation is completed, I do a certification which is done by an outside agency. Again, same standard, 5 areas, all the assigned odors, all the required time. Once the dog is certified, we then continue to train the dogs and do a rigorous training regimen, which includes a minimum of 4 hours of detection and 4 hours of patrol bite work. Once the dogs continue to do their training, we get them ready for deployment. The deployment obviously is going to carry more additional training to include medical training and any other required training depending on the theater of operation.
Lisa, why don't you talk a little bit about your experience?
Excuse me. Good morning. My name is Lisa Phillips. Excuse me. I joined the Army in 2001 as a veterinarian technician, so I actually took care of the military working dogs while they're on active duty. And through this experience, I was able to adopt 2 of the dogs that I cared for medically. And with doing this, I had to actually get another job while still on active duty to care for them fully from what their diseases and what they suffered from, for financially to take care of them, because it is extremely expensive, because these dogs, when they retire mainly because of osteoarthritis. Some suffer from PTSD, some kidney disease. I mean, anything that a human soldier can suffer from, these animals suffer from. So last spring semester, I actually went back to school, and my English teacher asked me to write an essay of something that had meaning to me. So I picked it on reclassifying our nation's military working dogs. And when she gave it back to me, she said, "You need to send it to Congress." So I worked on it and started making connections. And through that, Congressman Jones from North Carolina actually contacted me and offered to draft the bill. So the bill has been drafted, which is the one that the senator is going to be has talked about today. And in it, it doesn't cost the taxpayers any money. Just like he said, there's going to be a fund that's set up to pay for it all. But coming from the medical side of taking care of these animals, I know the extensive cost that is required. And these are heroes. These dogs are put on the front line. They're there to clear a building before our human soldiers, and they get no treatment when they retire. Their treatment when they're on active duty is absolutely amazing. The new dog center down at Lackland, San Antonio, Texas, is a multi-million-dollar facility that can do MRIs, physical therapy, anything that this dog requires. So it's very impressive the treatment that they get while on active duty, but then when they retire, they get nothing. So with their reclassification, they would be considered a canine service member of the armed forces, which is a title itself that will help them out so that they're not considered like a chair or a table, because they're not equipment. They're a living, breathing creature. And we take utmost care while they're on active duty and should do that in retirement also. Thank you.
I want to emphasize an important point that Lisa mentioned. There is a bill in the House. It is by a Republican congressman from North Carolina, Representative Jones. My bill is a little bit different, but the main point here is that there is a bipartisan effort, a truly bipartisan effort. This is not a party issue. It's about really caring for truly heroic animals that save limbs and lives of our warfighters abroad. And anyone who has seen them go up to a roadside bomb, literally, at the edge of a roadside bomb so that it can be detonated before it kills or maims our troops has to be moved by that experience to support this kind of effort. And I think caring for them is really an obligation we have as a nation.
I'm still a little unclear. The bill establishes a fund. How does the fund get funded?
The fund would be supported through private donations, which would be encouraged by the government. It would be established under a foundation under the auspices of the government. So it would have the credibility and support of the United States government, but it would not cost taxpayers money.
So would it be administered by someone in the Veterans Administration, or how is it going to work?
It would be administered much as semi-official agencies are, perhaps by a presidentially appointed board, so that it would have nonprofit status. It would be operated under the oversight and auspices of the United States.
How would the bill streamline adoption? Talk about that a little bit.
The bill would essentially streamline adoption by enabling quicker, more expedited adoption, focusing on families, raising awareness about the availability of the dogs, both through the foundation and otherwise. And really, in much the same way as we try to expedite aid that we're giving to our veterans, it would try to focus on finding caring, secure homes for the dogs. And, you know, again, people should be aware of the potential problems that these dogs may have. They've seen combat. They've been close to explosions. They may have suffered visible wounds or post-traumatic stress or concussive impacts, much as our warfighters do. And that kind of education for families adopting them is also very important. Of course, many of them become adopted by the wounded heroes whose companionship is so important both ways.
So essentially this would help defer the cost of taking care of them after they come back.
The cost of taking care of them when they come back, but also focusing on them as worthy of this recognition. Right now, they are literally classified as equipment. Technically, equipment can be left in the war zone. These dogs cannot be left. They are brought back, but the transport costs are borne by their handlers. Literally, they pay out of their own pockets to bring these dogs back, which, in my view, is outrageous.
So the foundation would fund, at least for the transport as well?
Exactly.
Can you describe what it's like for these dogs when they go through the PTSD? I mean, how does that manifest itself in the dog, or does anybody talk about that?
Yes. Excuse me. Just like with our human soldiers, loud noises or crowded areas can affect them. It's the same way with dogs. I've actually worked with quite a few dogs that have suffered from PTSD, and they're now afraid of thunderstorms, if a car backfires, or like an 18-wheeler drives by or something, like loud noises. Some of them do not like crowded areas. It's the same elements that we see in our human troops that the dogs suffer, but they just can't talk to you and tell you that, hey, I'm scared, protect me. So it's our job as the humans to take care of them and realize and understand what they're going through.
Is it difficult to diagnose, like if the dog has the PTSD?
That I don't know. I've seen them after they were diagnosed, but I'm assuming it would be just what they're doing, what their body behavior is showing everyone, what the new owner is telling the veterinarian. I would assume that's how it is diagnosed.
It's not unusual for dogs to be afraid of thunder anyway, so this experience can enhance that.
Yes, yeah. Many dogs are afraid of thunder and loud noises, but these dogs, these are trained warriors. They typically aren't afraid of loud noises. They're trained with weapons, but with their handlers, and they're trained to not be afraid of those noises so they don't spook. But after being near explosives or whatever may happen in time of war, they do come back timid, some of noises.
Senator, the question always raised about taking care of veterans, not only the dogs but the human veterans. And do you think that you can have any problems or opposition regardless the dogs take care of older than the veterans? the real veterans that may need help as well?
Well, as you know from the last time I was here, I believe very strongly that we must do better to keep faith with our veterans. And that's why the very first bill that I introduced in the United States Congress, called Honoring All Veterans, provides for programs that enable better health care and education, training, jobs for our veterans. We are failing to keep faith with them, and we have to take steps to leave no veteran behind. The fact that our unemployment rate for veterans is roughly double the rate for the population generally, in my view, has to be addressed. But many of our veterans, and I've consulted them before introducing this legislation, also support keeping faith with the dogs who are their comrades in combat and who demonstrate enormous strength and loyalty day in and day out on the battlefield. And so this measure is designed to take nothing away from our veterans, in fact, enhance the care that may be available to them, because many of these dogs come back and they help to provide companionship, particularly for our wounded or disabled veterans. And the evidence shows that they can be enormously effective in raising the psychological sense of well-being as well as literally physical energy levels of veterans if they come home and they are companions to them. So I think we're just beginning to explore how valuable a resource these military working dogs can be, not only in combat, but in caring when they come back for the companions and comrades they've had in combat.
I think it would be fair to say that the principal adopters are military people coming back. Is that right?
I think my own view is that if a veteran needs and can use these kinds of services from a military working dog, so much the better. But any safe and caring home is a good place for these dogs, and they deserve the kind of loyalty and dedication that they have shown when they've been abroad.
What's happening? Are some of them left behind?
None are left in the combat zone. None are left abroad, but they are brought home, and as Lisa said, and she can tell you more about it, very often the resources and the homes are just not available.
So what do they end up in shelters?
Back in Vietnam, they were left. Most of them were left. But now they are not left. They are brought back and to wherever their duty station was. Some go to Lackland to be adopted from there. Most find homes. Some, because of aggression, have to be put to sleep, and that's just for the safety of all involved, including the dog. But the military is not just going to go and put a healthy, to say, dog asleep because they can't find a home. There are many agencies out there that work with the military in finding these wonderful dogs homes.
So for this effort, I see here on your brochure, you have an email, you don't have a website or anything, is that right?
No, I do have a website. Yes.
Just to expand a little bit, just by way of background, in Vietnam, actually more than 1,000 were euthanized when the United States withdrew. Under President Clinton, there was an executive order that said they could not be physically left behind. They have to be brought back. But they are now officially classified as equipment, literally. So the costs of their transport back have to be borne by the dog handlers who care for them.
Well, so they can't be left behind. They have to be brought back. But there's no funding for that?
Exactly. It's an anomaly in the law, and if nothing else, this measure will correct that gap.
Right. But is that resulting in them being left behind?
Not so far as I know.
No.
They are brought back. They are brought back to this country, but then they are in a kind of unofficial limbo state.
Because in order to adopt them, you got to pay for that cost.
Exactly. And to repeat, the purpose of the fund is to cover some of the costs, and they can be substantial, particularly for their veterinary care. because of the physical and other problems they may have.
What does the government charge for bringing a dog back to the States? Does anybody know?
That I don't know. If they are retired, they're retired wherever they are at the duty station. And then once they're retired, whoever adopts them, they have to front the fee. If it's overseas, they have to pay for the transportation back to the States if that's where the adoptive family lives. The military will bring them back if they're deployed, if they're on active duty. If they're retired, they won't. And so this is what the bill is going to help with. So if, like I know of a woman who adopted a dog from Lackland, and she maxed out her credit card, paying air transportation to Lackland, hotel, rental car, and then paying for the dog to come back to wherever she was living. So it is extremely expensive. And just like the senator said, but then with the veterinarian care, you're looking at thousands of dollars because some of them need x-rays every 6 months to check on, hip dysplasia and whatnot, supplements, special diets, blood work. So it's an extreme cost for these families that want to adopt. So some families are having to say no, even though their heart is in the right place and they want to offer these heroes a home. But finances, it's extremely difficult.
Thank you all. And, you're welcome to interview anyone who is here and get some more details. Thank you again, General. Thank you. Thanks a lot.